This time, let's look at example 3, and we'll do a confidence interval where it actually applies to a certain situation. So, a random sample of 120 students from a large university yields a mean GPA of 2.71 with sample standard deviation 0.51. We want to construct a 90% confidence interval for the mean GPA of all students at the university. All right, so we're going to take a guess, in other words, as to what our population mean is, and we're going to have 90% confidence in that interval that we come up with. Okay, so let's start out the same way, a 90% confidence interval. Now, the truth is, we can kind of take a little bit of um, liberty here and go back to where we did a 90% confidence interval in example 1, and we got a z-value. Actually, we did the z-value. We didn't do the whole confidence interval, but we already did the work for 90%. It's up here, and we got z-values of negative 1.645 and positive 1.645. And the truth is, we're going to be doing most of the time 90% and 95% confidence intervals. So it's okay to use that same information again. We don't have to keep looking it up. All right, so our z-value is 1.645 that we're going to use. Since we've already got that information, we'll just bring it down here. So let's see, z was 1.645. And eventually you'll get used to 90% confidence interval is 1.645 for a large sample. A 95% confidence interval is 1.96 for a large sample. So we'll see those two values a lot when we're using 90 and 95% confidence. All right, so let's go back to our example. All right, so we have 120 in our sample. Our mean is 2.71 and our standard deviation is 0.51. So let's recall in our formula first, the sample mean comes first. It's 2.71. So we'll have 2.71 plus and minus. Then we want our z, 1.645, followed by our standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. So our standard deviation was 0.51. Oops. So 0.51 divided by the square root, and then our sample size was 120. So square root of 120. All right, so I'm going to, again, as I did with the last example, do the entire right side after the plus and minus in my calculator. So I'm going to put in 1.645 times 0.51 divided by the square root of 120 into my calculator. That ends up giving me 0.077 if I round to 3 decimal places. All right, so now we've got our two calculations. 2.71 minus 0.077 and 2.71 plus 0.077. And notice I went out 3 decimal places because my original data is out to 2 decimal places. So I'm taking it 1 decimal place further. All right, so let's do our 2.71 minus our 0.077 first. That ends up giving me 2.633. And then let's do our 2.71 plus our 0.077, 2.787. All right, so our actual confidence interval is from 2.633 to 2.787. But now let's make our confidence statement. We are 90% confident the true GPA of students at this particular university that we're looking at is between 2.633 and 2.787. Now make sure that you can actually make that confidence statement because you will be required to do that on your test. Even though some of your homework doesn't ask for it, It just asks for the actual confidence interval. So be aware that right there is an important part of your test questions. So you may want to practice that as you do your homework.